Okay, welcome back to this painting. I've had a little break and now I'm coming back. I'm reloading some of the paint. The burnt sienna went pretty quickly, and the burnt umber proved to be a much needed color. So, some new paint on the palette. Do I still have enough white? Well, can't hurt to throw some more white onto the palette as well. I think the rest is still, yeah, fine. Now, what do I want to do with the background? It's pretty grayed, muted, and it's maybe nice to get something of interesting value or value shift, color shift in there. Of course, against the reddish tones in her hair, greenish color would look quite nice. In the reference, the background is fairly dark, like a mid-tone gray, a little bit darker than what it's now, but concerning the kind of chroma, it's relatively similar. So maybe I want to get it a little bit lighter than what I have in the reference, and maybe also just fairly, well, subtly throw in some greenish hints. Just seeing a couple more areas in the face that I might want to reconsider. And well, more than anything, I want enough variation in the planes of the face, and also in the planes of the hair. I see a little bit more grayish tints here and there. And let's put down a couple of strokes here. And this was what some of these very impressionistic painters were so good at, to just put down some strokes and magically suggest with that form and even detail, which is really admirable. At least I find it really admirable. I'm also seeing still a little bit of a touch-up necessary for this dark shadow underneath the ear. That looks better. So yeah, I'm really getting a lot of, well, new patches of color and color variations into the earlier work, and it's starting to work quite nicely, I think. And yeah, it's very suggestive, very impressionistic, all in all. But yeah, that is kind of the beauty of it. So let's get back to my kind of original average color for the neck and rest of the face, and well, dabble in some of that color. And take a large flat brush. Make sure it's clean enough. I'm kind of embracing the dirty brush idea. Working with a flat brush to get some quick coverage. And the round hog brush to throw in some, well, what's it called? Impasto kind of details. A little bit of color variation. Tra la 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 la. More linseed oil, especially with the flat brush. It's very flexible. The hog hairs are rather stiff, which makes them so good for, of course, very impasto kind of treatment. Now for the background. Yeah, now for the background. No, well, I'm taking my flat brush, and I think one thing I wanna do is get a little bit more volume in the hair, especially here on the back. And that's going to be something like this. A little bit more of an idea of the volume of the, or a separation of the volumes for the side versus the top of the head. And we'll get some color. This is way too much extending, beyond what I want, but that is so that I can come in with a background tone and blend it in and get a very fuzzy, hazy, kind of atmospheric integration of the head and face into the rest of the figure or background. A little bit more touches and suggestions of plane change and color variation. Touch more red, pink. And well, I'm making quite a mess out of this, but that's okay. It can be quite messy and abstract down here. A little bit more pink. Maybe alizarin crimson with quite a dollop of white. Yeah, that's looking pretty okay. More white. Well, I'm saying that, but well, maybe should be a little bit careful not to overpower this lightest tones right here and make sure that I keep the focus on this part of the work. I'm just not liking this part of the face just yet. Maybe it's also because, well, let's clean the brush. I'm gonna go for a color that is basically burnt umber and burnt sienna, and yes, implement a little bit of a darker shadow value for this cheek area, and now get a nice vibrant orangish hint of color in the shadow here. And new paper towel. Okay, this is starting to, well, look like something. Something which is maybe acceptable to me. Loads of color still. It's a nice expressive quality, and that I've somehow managed to establish. A little bit more light maybe on the chin. lighter. That's probably gonna be too light. Yeah, a little bit, so blending it in. And ever so slightly a touch of that light tone in this part. Okay. What's happening near the jaw and ear is still a little bit unsatisfactory. So I kind of have to look for ways to fix that. Maybe get a little bit more drawing in the ear. But also look for this value in the cheek. Let's have a look in the mirror again. Okay, okay. I think before long I shall call it quits, but I still didn't get to or get around to this background color. So I'm gonna spend some time on that, and then maybe also have a fresh of or a pair of fresh eyes for the face and the facial features, because I'm kind of wearing myself out trying to do some of this stuff. Okay, the background. Let's see. Cleaning the palette again. So we have some fresh colors to work with. Now I could think about putting some green pigment on the palette, like maybe for instance some well, I'm thinking phthalo green or something like that. But maybe I'll see how far I get with the yellow ochre and the, well, cerulean blue that I still have. What brush to use? Well, maybe the biggest one I have on the palette. Dip it in the linseed oil. Just seeing one more, well, maybe not crucial thing, but I do want to get this edge for the eyelid a little bit in place. Okay, background. A lot of white. Touch of blue. Touch of yellow. More blue than yellow. Getting kind of a coolish, greenish color. And where to start? It's definitely a touch lighter. I like it. I'm already going over some of the wet paint that I put down earlier in the hair, and that's perfectly fine. There we go. Nice start. Let's also really get a little bit of light underneath the chin. And also this layer is just an initial kind of idea, a sketch of the color and tonal value that I'm looking for. So really not necessary to be too meticulous. It's rather just throwing something down that we can preview and adjust and, well, assess and adjust. I should get a new easel, one that doesn't slide away, but I'm using my right hand, not because I'm right-handed, but it's just easier to reach, and for these kinds of very bold strokes it really doesn't matter whether you're completely on point with your aim or accuracy. More white, a little bit more linseed oil. And maybe in a later stage I'm gonna scrub this down a bit and do a second pass. Also mainly focused on covering and incorporating the foreground, the hair elements in the foreground. which immediately gives us this oops, it gives us this integration of back and foreground, especially around hair, having some soft or blurred edge can really work well. Otherwise, I think the figure starts looking like too much of a cutout. Whoops, I should get a new easel. And that's something that, well, if possible, I'd rather avoid. Now, when we go to the bottom, I want to implement a little bit of a richer, darker version, so I'm getting a bit more blue, and I'm using now just a touch of black. Very slight drop of black, which, well, I don't know if it catches that much on camera, but already does quite a bit. And coming into the earlier wet background, whoops, applying just a touch more black. In the reference I do see this hint of shadow being cast behind her head, which might be nice to capture or suggest. And then maybe also get a little bit of that dark, maybe around the corners. That's too much. And again, coming into the wet paint that is there, stroking back and forth. We get a blend. I should take care of these edges if I ever intend on selling this painting or presenting it somewhere in a physical capacity. I would say that, well, a little bit of a care in the presentation of your painting is good practice. Although I hardly ever invest the necessary time and energy to establish that. Still, take it from me as an advice. Paper towel. So, kind of entering the final stage of this painting. First and foremost, I'm gonna look for a little bit of a scrubbing and blending and pushing and pulling along some of these edges in the hair. It's a little bit too homogeneous now. And then I'm gonna do probably two more things. One is refining the shapes, values along the silhouette for the face and the foreground, and two, suggest a little pass of detail in the hair. Let's get my medium hog hair brush again. It really says that art is superior quality, but willing to bet that it was a very cheap set of brushes that well, cost a little more than $10 in total for all these brushes. So here we're gonna go with a little bit of a suggestion of loose strands of hair. I'm also seeing a very subtle loose strand of hair coming from behind the mouth, and well, I should reload my white. I'm not too, what's the word, stingy with paint, especially not white. If I have any excess white left, I'll use it to cover some old ruined painting and use it, like you saw in the beginning, as the support or the surface for a next painting. I'm going to try to make some orangish color. And maybe really get some loose, fun strands of hair catching light. For instance, here I'm using very thick, undiluted paint, and I regularly reload, throwing in several variations with the different pigments, just to get some fun color variations in all these hair strands. And I'm also looking for um, a nice variety of strokes in terms of size, direction, and this kind of brush, a flat brush, either this well, Catstone, or I think it's called Filbert, or just a square flat brush. They lend themselves because with some rotation you can get a broader tip or stroke and a more narrow one. A little bit too light. Oh yeah, that's nice there as well. Let's get some burnt sienna. Maybe a darker version. And I really should darken some of the hair underneath this tie down, so the paint is there really thick. I'm gonna make quite a thick pad and scrape down some of the paint, or scrape it away. There we go. That should enable me to cover it again. Using some of the light, I can touch up the silhouette. And coming in with my darkest darks, burnt umber, touch of Van Dyke brown. Now looking for some of these areas to cover and make very dark, very opaque paint now. A little suggestion of these strands of hair here. Well, I doubt whether the likes of an Israels and Fetchin, Repin, Frans Hals, etc. would approve of this work, but I am gonna call it quits before long, at least with the recording. Maybe I'll do some touch-ups in the time after this recording, but it's time for me to start thinking about calling it quits, as I always do before I actually call it quits. A little bit more dark in here. Again, let's get rid of some of the opaque layers of paint if necessary. Mix a glob of dark paint in here and suggest the shadow, but also the flow of the hair in this area, and come in maybe some darker strokes here, and you know what, maybe a nice little bright touch of red. That's nice. That's nice and lively. Okay. It's hard for me to get that, well, appropriate balance between detail and activity, but also locations for the eye to rest, in the hair, in the face. I am gonna call it quits in a moment and leave the hair be. I'm just looking for a little sharper contour here in the right side. And really control my edges. Thick opaque paint. Plenty of white undiluted. And I'm also seeing, which is nice, let's clean up this brush. I'm also seeing a little, well, negative space. For a strand of hair. That works. It works well enough, maybe a touch higher to start the separation, and just a touch here. Now for some of the negative shapes near this part of the hair, and also here. Well, that should be darker. So I don't have to make the edge completely sharp. On the contrary, that's something that I definitely want to avoid. But I do want to, here and there, pick up on a nice sharp contour and get some interesting interplay between soft edges, lost edges, and crisp edges. Maybe to quickly finish it off, I'm gonna look for a little bit of a skin tone to complete the bottom. With again some color variation, some value variation, all close, but just enough to liven up the sketch. And I'm using a lot of medium, a lot of linseed oil now to well, just kind of speed up the process, get a lot of flow. Also just because I'm a bit lazy. Suggesting just a touch of shadow here, and I'm also seeing a touch of light hitting the shoulder somewhere over here. Okay, well. It's a quick little painting, and now all in all, what did this take me? About 3 hours. Well, not too quick actually, but a little bit more dark. Yep. And then this light color. Yep. Here, shall I do it? It doesn't make much of a difference. Let's try to establish just one more value level for the absolute lightest lights. Really just a touch here, a bit less bright for the chin. I should be careful to not overdo the contrast and the sharpness of the edges to avoid making her look like she's very wet or sweaty or greasy with a glossy skin. Okay, I think I should leave it at this and just thank you for bearing with me for quite a while. Because, well, I'm afraid it's not gonna get a heck of a lot better. So, as I continue working, I'll stop this recording and I'll thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed this kind of content and the kind of painting approach that I took here. And if not, then, well, too bad. I enjoyed it. So there. Okay, guys. That's it. One more final touch is to very subtly amend the shape of the lip here. And with that, we'll call it quits. Now it's quits. Nope. No. Okay, guys. Let's see. Can I get the camera a bit more straight in front of it? Well, not too much more than this. And that maybe helps you to kind of get an idea of the final result, at least as far as I'm gonna videotape it. So there we go. As of this point, I'll officially end the recording. Bye for now. See you next time. Cheers.